previous video, I created this background using Distress Oxide Ink, and now I have come up with an idea of what we can do to create a card with this using some dies. And this is what I came up with, and I thought I would go ahead and show you how I made that. It's going to probably be a longer video. I might have to make it into 2 separate videos because of the amount of detail that we're going to do for this. So just wanted to let you know up front that's what we're going to be doing, and I'll get started. So the first thing that you're really going to need to do is you are going to have to figure out where you're going to be putting your first die. Well, let me back up. I am so sorry. I want to show you some of the dies that we are going to be using. These are Tim Holtz dies. We are going to be using this die, and it is called Splat, and the number of it is 664159, and it's from Sizzix. I'm also going to be using 2 foliages, or 3 foliages from this package, and this one's called Funky Floral 3 662702. I will have all the information below in my description, and I'm also going to be using the Dragonfly, and this is from 664180, Geo Insects, and it's got some beautiful insects in there. And then I think that's it in terms of the dies. So I actually take a look at the cover and you could really do the splat in any direction that you want to, but I decided to go ahead and go with a similar design and setup, the way it's set up. Let me go ahead and pull my card over here so you can see what I'm talking about. It is covered up slightly, but that's the deal, and that's what I did is I set that up. That's how I start, and then I go underneath and make my layers. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so once you've got that cut out, you've decided that's the design that you're where you're gonna put your design. And again, it can be in any shape. And go ahead and save this because this will make a really cool background for another card. So you're gonna be needing 2 layers. Actually, it'll be 3 if you include the card base. So I'm gonna be having 2 layers underneath so that I will have the 3D dimension. So each one of these needs to be a color. And what I decided to do was I decided to use Distress Oxide Cracked Pistachio and Distress Oxide Scattered Straw. And all I did was very similar to when we made the background to begin with. This part, I put the gray in the background. I am using a blended brush that is slightly wet, and I am going to be using this ink just to ink up the area that I know is going to be shown back behind there. And yes, because this is wet, it's arching up just a little bit, but it will also lay flat after I go ahead and use my heat gun, or if I can just let it dry naturally. So that's plenty, and I'll show you why. That's plenty to be covered. Just make sure that whatever you put behind there will cover that part. Let me move this up just a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry. So you want to make sure that this will be covered. The green will totally cover it. One of the things I didn't tell you, and I told you originally, this is 5.5 by 5.5, the top. So I cut these a little bit shorter. I cut them about 5 inches to go underneath. They don't need to be the full length. So again, that's plenty. If you want it darker, I would suggest for you to put another layer on, which I'm going to do right there. All right, so that's going to be that layer, and then I will figure out where the die needs to be, but I wanted to show you what you needed to do first. And then I'm going to be using the scattered straw, and it's got a little bit of green on this already, so I'm wiping that back just a tad. It's already wet. And I'm going to pull that up, and again I'm going to cover this. It does have a little bit of a green to it, and if you don't want to have too much of a green to it, use a completely different blending tool and again, have it very lightly wet. It makes it paint on instead of, you know, it doesn't take as much ink as if you were going to just do it dry. So I'm going to let both of those dry, or probably use the heat gun, and I will be back showing you where to die cut those. All right, so I have the green dried, and I have selected the next set of dies that needs to go on top to be cut out. And as you can see, I'm going to show you the picture again. This is the khaki one in here. You can see how the hole is down here, and then this little piece comes up at the top. It looks a little tricky, but that is, if you use this for your guide, you will know that you've got it set up right. You could really do anything you want to, but this is how it is set up on the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get that die cut out, and then I have to come back and then line this up with the yellow one. Okay, so now I have the yellow one back behind the green, and I have it taped down again. If you go ahead again and look at the design where that's located, the gray, that's going to be cutting that out. So that's my next die cut. Now for a little bit of fun. For those of you that don't like glitter, this might not be your favorite part, but it's really what makes the card sparkle. I want to show you this. We're going to be working on the inside of that, and it's really kind of a fun thing to do. Here's the deal. There is a glitter that's out there that's called Fairy Hugs at Lavinia World, and this one is called Pixie Dust, and it's translucent, and that means that whatever color is underneath is going to show through. So this is fabulous. So what I did was I decided I wanted broken china, which really coordinated with the blue up above, to be underneath. So all you have to do to get the color, instead of buying a lot of different colors, you can do this. And that is, again, you're going to take your brush, and this one's still, again, a little bit damp. And all you're going to do is go over the center area where you know, this has a little bit of that yellow still in it, but it'll show through all right. Where you know that that piece is going to be showing, that cutout. And all you do is you just put the color that you want your glitter to be right there. So let's double check that a second and how that's going to work. So you can see that that's going to be blue back behind there. That's pretty all in itself without adding any glitter. But now, to add the glitter, I'm going to have to first go ahead and dry this because it's a slightly damp, and the tape will not, the double-sided tape will not stick to something slightly damp. All right, so this is dry, and I have some double-sided score tape that I am going to be putting down. But I want to make sure that I've got that in the right place, and so I'm going to be doing some measuring. And if not, I can always add more tape to the section I need to put on. All right, let's check that out one more time. So I have it where I want it. I want this part to be my glitter. So I've got that secured, and I'm going to take off the top layer. And as you can see the blue because it's a clear tape. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking this Fairy Hugs glitter, the Pixie Dust, and I am just going to be adding that to the top. Okay. I want to make sure that I cover the tape, just because then it won't stick. Okay, so we totally have that covered. The next thing you need to do, which is very important, is you need to, I think how you say it is, burnish it. And what I use to do that is my bone folder. And I want to show you what the difference is when you do that. This also keeps the glitter secure so it doesn't come off. I have a feeling that my original one, I used, I believe that I must have used chipped sapphire or instead of the Mermaid Lagoon or the Broken China. It's a little bit different color blue, but it's the same concept. So I've got that all burnished. I just wanted you to see how that works. And then you can see, let me see if I get the lighting better. It's just really pretty. It's just gorgeous and it's blue. So let me set that back over so you can see. We still have that blue look to it. It's very pretty. All right, so then the other things, that's all set for that. So that we have our layers all set, but I add a little bit more of detail to these. I add a little bit of distress around the edges. If you want to see, I did a little bit of distressing around all these edges. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will be back to put it together. All right, now for some layering. This is the top, and this is the second layer. And whoops, I got to get these set up so they're not sticking too terribly bad on here. Hold on. So this, I need to line those up. And I've already got the double-sided tape, foam tape behind. And so then my next one would be this one. And just lining that up. And those are ready to go. Now, what I do first before I go ahead and put it on the card is, I forgot to tell you before I put these all together, I used the sapphire, chipped sapphire, and I edged around this. So I forgot to show you that, but I did do that. I distressed the edge. So the next thing I'm going to do is put this on the card base, and when I do that, all I do is I put double-sided tape all the way around the edge, and I usually, if this is the level, I'm not going to add more tape there. I'll just put one layer of tape, but these parts that have a layer, I'll put double of the foam tape, and then I'll put foam tape around the top, and it will then set on top of the card base. I turned my light on so you could see the how pretty that glitter is in the color. So then stick around. I'm going to go ahead and put that together, and then I'm going to show you how I made the dragonfly, and how I made the dragonfly, and how I added and made these, and then how I added a little bit of distressed a texture paste. That's Crackle. So I'll be right back. All right, so I thought I'd go ahead and show you how I did put all this tape on the back, as I told you, and I doubled up on the sides here. And then I also trimmed the one part that was all the way at the bottom so that I could add that all the way around to be even. And then I put another layer, single layer, on this top layer right here. So that is how that's going to be going together. The hardest part right now is actually trying to line this up with the camera in front of me. Let's see. I do want it to be on straight. All right. So that is how that's going to go. I might have to fix this one side a little bit, but there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do for the dragonfly. Okay, so for the dragonfly and for the foliage that's on the card, I used gathered twigs for the foliage, and I did the same concept. Is I just used my damp brush and I put brown on here, and I just put enough so that I could cut out those few dies. And I can see that my brush is starting to dry up a little bit, but it's still going to work fine. All right, so that should be enough for my brown. And then for my dragonfly, I use black soot. And I need to make sure I have a lot more on this one because the dragonfly is quite long. And we can always test that by bringing the die over here to make sure I have enough. Okay. I did it on its side so it would fit this piece. So that's going to work fine. So that's the next thing you do is you die cut all of these things out. And when you do that, you I also, after I do that, I have to put some clear embossing powder or clear VersaMark that's oh, I can't think of it. So I'm going to be using this on the dragonfly, and then I'm going to be adding some embossing tinsel bridal, and on the oh yeah, I forgot. I also cut it out of this vellum. It is a very thin vellum. It was actually called like a tracing paper vellum, but I will put the bridal tinsel on top of that, and then the dragonfly will have a clear embossing powder, but I'll be back to show you that too. Okay, so I'm all ready to emboss these with a VersaMark. And all I do is put a little bit of embossing on top of these. And then I put clear embossing powder on top of the black dragonfly. And I need to do that quickly. Okay, so we have that on that. And then this, which is hard to see on here, this is the vellum. And the vellum, I also add this to. But instead of clear embossing, I add the bridal tinsel that I showed you previously. The bridal tinsel. This is not an transparent. It is more of a sparkly white. Just got stuck. Okay, now I have a little tip. When you go to, and maybe other people have some tips too, but when I go to heat emboss these, they are very thin, and they move all over the place. So what I do is I take another piece of cardstock and I use my tweezers. I have different tweezers, but I didn't have them with me, so I had to use these. And I just hold that down, and then I heat gun it because the paper behind it will hold it so it doesn't curl up. It'll just stay flat against this paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these both embossed. All right, so I have the dragonflies. As you can see, embossed, clear embossed, and then this one is, like I said, with the Bridal tinsel. It's really, really pretty. So all I do for these is I glue them together right at their, I want to say body base, and that would be, I'll move this a little bit out of the way, is just right here and then probably on the head. And I am using this fine point glue that I got at Lavinia World. It is the Cosmic Shimmer, and it works really well for these little fine spots. And then all I do is I lay this on top of this one that I embossed. And I match it up, just so that the head and that top body part are glued together. And then I let that set over to the side because there's a few other things we need to still do to the front of the card. And I want to get that done first, and then we'll add the dragonfly. So as I told you, I added a little bit of this Distress Texture Paste, the Crackle, and it did crackle. It's tiny because the spots are tiny, but it did crackle. So let's get that done really fast, and then we'll be able to finish off this card quickly. I kind of was using this idea as thinking it was the tops of the waves. So you don't need very much because these holes are very small. And I'm just going to randomly put some on and then let those set to dry. But I'll be able to add the dragonfly and the foliage. So that's what that looks like there, and I just added a little bit over here. And like I said, you don't need very much of this. Sorry that bumped. I bumped that. Okay. And a couple more places. I think I'm going to use this other side. Turn this around so I don't go on top of it. Let's see here. Yep, a little bit over to the side here. And you want to get this dried off relatively quickly, or because these holes are so tiny, it gets hard in them. So just pop it in the water, clean it off with some soap, liquid soap. And we'll add this one over here. Because I don't want to touch I'm going to turn it around. Use the smaller holes. I'm using the smaller holes so that it keeps in proportion to the design. Okay, here we go. So that's what that looks like once you've added a little bit of the texture paste. Now I'm going to go ahead and quickly put my thing in the water, and I'll be right back to add the dragonfly and the foliage, and we'll be done. Okay, so in order to add the dragonfly, I am just going to add a little bit more of that glue and just set the dragonfly on top of this part right here, just like I did in my original. Scooch it down just a tad so that it'll still fit in the envelope. Here we go. And you see how his tail is kind of sticking up? If you want that to lay down, you can just rub your finger underneath both of those and curl it down, and it'll lay flat. So that's our dragonfly. Now quickly I am going to add the foliage, and that's just going to go down in here, up here, and right there. And that actually gets added quite easily. I just put a little bit of glue again on the back. And I pop that in. Okay, so I want to thank you for stopping by and checking out this this video on how you can create using your background. It could even be, it can be clouds, you can add anything different. This is what I actually had in my stash, and so I wanted to go ahead. I might even glue his tail down a little bit before, but we'll see how that goes because I'm waiting for him to dry. Once he dries, sometimes they lay flatter. So there you go. Wanted you to take a quick look. And I just would like to ask you if you would subscribe and share if you could. And I will have the links, like I said, below. And I appreciate you stopping by. Thanks so much.